Hello and welcome to the United Stand. A little bit early tonight because we've got a fantastic show coming up for you after this one. Manchester United versus Chelsea 2008 Watchalong stream. Couple of hours of absolute brilliant history. Link in the video description for that. But we've got to do the show. We've got to do a normal show. And Jose Mourinho obviously featuring very, very much at the moment around losing trust and respect of the players. Where do you stand on this as Manchester United fans? Because I know we had Ross on when we were talking about the FA Cup final on Saturday, and he said, realistically, our season should not be defined by the FA Cup. But actually, it really, really has, because the mood of the Manchester United fans, the way the press are getting in at Jose, really is as a result of the FA Cup. Because I was thinking about this morning, and I'm sure many of you have as well. If we'd won that FA Cup, I still think we'd go, Champions League wasn't great, last few months of the season wasn't very good football-wise, Sanchez has been a bit of a flop, but we've won a trophy, and hopefully we can have a good summer, and it's Mourinho's last chance last year to sort it all out. Because we haven't had that positive sort of cap on the season and the negativity's rolled over into the summer, I think that's left a lot of people just not happy. Just not happy, I suppose. That's it. You've also got a lot of fans who are just saying, "Oh, stop being negative," and a bit of a divided fan base, I suppose. But the press will jump on that, and we should be eye open to that. I've always said this. We should always have our eyes open to what the press feeds us, because it is manipulated. And Jose Mourinho had literally been here a month, and a certain paper said he'd lost the dressing room, which was absolute nonsense. So when we see Mourinho's losing the respect and trust of players, it could be as nonsense as it was then. Or there might be some truth in it. Apparently there's going to be stuff coming out this week from certain sources that there are players that aren't happy, but we know there aren't players who are happy. My personal stance at the moment with Jose is that I'm sympathetic to his situation. He will be here for another year. He should be here for another year. But I do also empathise, because I feel it myself. I feel very, very, very disappointed with what we did on Saturday. I feel very disappointed with certain United players coming out and saying, we played really well, we're disappointed, but we were the better team. I'm sorry, that sounds very much like something Crystal Palace would say when they've lost the final as the underdogs, but they played well. Well, we played well, it just wasn't to be our day. I tell you what, Roy Keane, Sir Alex Ferguson, the class of 92, Brian Robson, whoever you want to name who's been a winner at Manchester United, would not come out after a game that they've lost and say, we played well, it's disappointing. You lose, doesn't matter whether you play well. It really doesn't matter. You lose, and that is it. And this weakness mentality that's infiltrated our club over the last 5 years, which is sometimes fed by our manager, needs to stop. It needs to stop. We lost the game of football. Better team or not, and I would argue that Chelsea deserved it, but whether they did or they didn't, we lost that game. Chelsea's goal was in the first half, which means we've got over a half of a match to get a goal, and we didn't do it. And we lost, and we deserve to lose. And it's unacceptable. So I don't want to see any more of this from our players or our manager. The better team lost. It's weak. It's weak-minded. It's justifying losing. I don't want to see that. Killface Dell has made a contribution. He says, at what point is the club bigger than the manager and not just the players? Mourinho praises Sanchez for the same thing he berates Martial over. I think, look, there were some things I was sort of looking at, and obviously Pogba's comments are quite interesting again, sort of echoing that contractually it looks like, yes, I'll be a player next season, but you never know. He also came out with a quote that you don't have to be best friends with your manager, which is really interesting, because if you listen to Paul Parker talking to Flex on Friday, Paul Parker, Manchester United right back, won a double in the early 90s, asked about Sir Alex Ferguson, he said not only was he a great coach, he was a great friend as well. Of course you don't have to be friends with your coach, and it's quite clear that Mourinho isn't friends with many of his players. But it bloody helps if you're liked by your players, let's be honest. You can be a dictator, of course you can. And there's been successful dictators out there through history, not just in football, but in the world. But ultimately, any leadership is better when you actually like and respect your manager or your leader. And Jose doesn't seem to need that. I think, personally, there's a problem. And there's a problem going into the summer that I don't know how it's going to solve itself. As I said, I think the FA Cup would have just watered it all down a bit. Turn the flame down a little bit. Winning that FA Cup would have just given us something to say, acceptable season. Not great, but acceptable. We're now left in this firm position that it's not been a very good season. And reading around what people are saying, and there was a fantastic quote this morning, and I forget who it was from because I've read so much stuff this morning, and it was along the lines of Manchester United fans are now becoming tired of the Galactico approach of Mourinho and Woodward, whereby they're clearly going to go and spend a lot of money this summer, but we've been there, we've done that, and what does that do? It papers over the cracks. There are bigger problems at Manchester United that I think some fans are thirsty for us to go out and sign players because that's exciting, and I enjoy the transfer window, but I must be honest, I feel a little bit apprehensive about this transfer window, and I don't know what you think, because Anonymous says keeping Jose next year will completely ruin us. I think that's unfair. He's going to be here next year, and as Manchester United fans, we must hope. You may have valid arguments as to why it's going to fail, but as Manchester United fans, surely we all hope he's going to get it right. He's here next season, so we better bloody hope. And I hope he can get it right. And I'm probably one of the minorities that is still Mourinho in. But having said that, I'm apprehensive about this transfer window, because I do agree with what was said this morning that Milinkovic-Savic coming in. Willian, Alderweireld, whoever we bring in, I'm not excited as I have been for the last 2 years, because we're 2 years into this journey, no formation, no philosophy, a manager who looks disinterested, a club that looks so far away from the title, and we've already spent 2 years buying players and it's not got us any further forward. Part of me, and I know you're all going to disagree with me on this, part of me feels I'd be quite happy if the board said, we don't know whether you're going to be here in a year. We're not going to sanction you selling Pogba, Martial, Shaw, because they're all young and they can be the future for another manager if you go in a year. So you can crack on with what you've got. And if you're such a great manager, you will get the best out of the players you've got. We'll let you we'll sign you a left back. No, actually, don't sign it. No, I'll retract that. I would say we'll sign you a couple of midfielders, because Carrick and Fellaini have gone. But every other position, you're not having anybody. You've got Fosu Mensah coming back, who can back up Valencia. You've got Young and Shaw, who can be your left backs. You've got plenty of forwards. You've just got Sanchez. You've got Martial, Rashford, Lingard, Mata, Lukaku. You are short in the midfield. I'll get you 2 midfielders, and that's it. You're not having anything else. We're not sanctioning a clear out of players that other managers would come in and use. I think if a different manager came in, a manager that was a little bit more, diverse in the way they deal, because Jose is a self-confessed, I don't like putting my arms around people's shoulders. If you brought a manager in who puts arms around shoulders, kicks people up the back side, can do all the aspects of management, I guarantee you'd see a better Luke Shaw, a better Paul Pogba, a better Martial, a better Rashford. And that is why I'd be loathed as Ed Woodward or whoever's in charge of Mourinho, I'd be absolutely loathed to sell those players, just because what we're hearing, they're going to back him 100%. Whatever he wants, whoever he wants to get rid of and whoever he wants to bring in to replace them, they're going to back him 100%. I think that's really naive management and board management. We're Manchester United. Just because Jose Mourinho says this doesn't mean we should just bend over and do it. I don't think the justification is there over the last 2 years to trust him enough to sell players that are in their 20s, early 20s, who can go on to be very good. I wouldn't do that. And as much as I am Mourinho in, I wouldn't do that. I'd be saying, look, Jose, you are one of the best managers in the world. In fact, on paper, you're probably the best. Get the best out of Luke Shaw. Get the best out of Anthony Martial. Get the best out of Paul Pogba. That's where you'll prove it, because I was speaking to my mate at lunchtime and he said, imagine Mourinho sells Pogba, Martial, Luke Shaw, and then he signs Savic, Willian and Sandro, and they win the title. All United fans will be very happy, and we would be very happy. But everybody else will just slate Mourinho, because they will say, you're not a great manager. You're a checkbook manager, because you bought Pogba and you got rid of him. You had Martial, you ruined him. You had Luke Shaw, you got rid of him. All you did is rotate and buy and sell until you got the players that were going to win at you. You didn't develop anybody. You didn't show any man management skills. You didn't show any development of player skills. You just bought players and got rid of players that you couldn't work with. I suppose there's some element of truth to that. I mean, part of me thinks, sod it, we'll win a title. And I'm very greedy to win a title. I want us to win a title. But it was an interesting point last night, wasn't it, when Flex and Sophie were on, because there are players in this Manchester United team that I think have stagnated. Rashford, Lingard. I think Lingard's gone backwards since Christmas, and I don't know why people don't accept that. I mean, I think Jesse Lingard's a very useful member of the squad. And I don't agree with him starting games. I totally agree with people who say that. But I do think he's gone backwards since the Messi Lingard January-December. Mata's sort of been sidelined. There's an overemphasis on Sanchez, who's been abysmal and actually needs the biggest kick up the backside in the world because he is the biggest paid player in the Premier League. And I'm sorry, I'm fed up. I saw it again today. I'm fed up of Sanchez saying I'm struggling to adapt. I tell you what, I could send me to Chile on £500,000 a week and I'll adapt in a couple of days, mate. I don't, I know he's not from this country, but he's been here for a number of years. It's literally 2 hours up the road from London to Manchester if you put your foot down. And he's struggling to adapt at the biggest club in the world. And he's been on £500,000 a week, reportedly, for well over 4 months. And he's struggling to adapt at a game he's been playing for the last 20 years. I mean, it's just not good enough. I'm fed up with these excuses from Sanchez. When, as somebody said at the very start, if Rashford was doing what Sanchez did, he'd be absolutely slaughtered. So there is inconsistencies, we know that. But losing the dressing room always irritates me. I don't think he's lost the dressing room. I think he's lost the trust and respect of some players. And that's probably understandable because some players will probably feel like some of us United fans feel, frustrated and bored and wondering why Manchester United are doing this. And those are things that Jose needs to sort out. But I don't like... it doesn't really matter who the manager is. Even under Moyes, I would have still said the same thing. I don't want players turning on managers. It's not classy and it really isn't the way to go. But I do think that Sanchez's poor form is horrific, says Christian Del Pozo. I would much rather sell Sanchez than Martial. Sanchez is not the future. Martial is. I mean, I put it out on Twitter today that, and you'll like this. So Inns this summer transfer window, Sandro, Alexandro, Alderweireld, Savic, Willian. I bet you like that, don't you? You like that four, don't you? So Sandro, Alderweireld, Willian, Savic come in, okay? But going out, Luke Shaw, Pogba, Martial, Smalling. Would you get those four really good signings for those four players to go? And I think that's what that comment this morning was all about. Some Manchester United fans now will look at those four really good signings and any other year would go, wow, that's brilliant, that's great, we're going to be a great team next year. But I think some fans now are looking at those four signings and going, you know what? I'm not a Real Madrid fan. I'm not a Man City fan. I'm not plastic. I'm not shallow. I'm a Manchester United fan. And whilst those four signings are really good, since when have we got rid of people, of 22-year-olds, of somebody we spent 90 million on who can be one of the best midfielders in the world? Of our most consistent centre-back this season. Since when have we been a club about that? Since when did we become Real Madrid Galactico FC, where we discard people because we can't be asked to put the work in and sign another load of players? And I know some fans would go, sod it, get rid of them, they've underperformed, get those in. And that's fine, that is fine, but there is a way to fans now that are starting to think, screw the signings. Let's sort out the players that we've got that actually do wear the United shirt at the moment, that can be really good players. Let's start doing a little bit of that instead of this lazy Galactico approach that really isn't what Manchester United's all about. And that's not just on Mourinho. That's on the board who sanction these deals. Because I've said this a few times. Is Ed Woodward a Manchester United fan? Was he ever a Manchester United fan? Or is he just a great businessman who wants to go out and get Galacticos? Because Manchester United, when you look at our history, we've always spent money. But the fundamental thing about Manchester United is development of youth talent, attacking, risk-making football. And we're not ticking enough of those boxes at the moment. And if I was in charge of Manchester United this summer, I'd be pulling Jose Mourinho into a room. I'd be hugging him and saying, Jose, you look sad. Why are you so sad? Why have you fell out of love with football? Do you want to go with a big payoff and we'll look at somebody else? Or do you want to stay here and be the manager that I believe you can be? Can you put a smile on your face? Can you show us that you care? And can you fall in love with football again and this fantastic opportunity and club that we've given you? Because it's not working at the moment. Can you also speak to us about what you're going to say in press conferences? Because you come across miserable, antagonistic and like you don't give a shit. This is Manchester United. We're the biggest club in the world. Let's have a little bit of professionalism from one of the best managers in the world, please. And also, when we're talking about transfers, I will buy you a couple of players, but you're not having a left back because you've got Luke Shaw. You're not selling Anthony Martial. And Paul Pogba, you wanted 2 years ago, get the best out of him. Let's work together to make this club great. Let's work together to make this club great. And at the moment, I'm not getting that from either side. And I think we lack leadership on the pitch, but I think that we lack some leadership in the boardroom because something is amiss. It's almost as if Ed Woodward's in awe of Mourinho, but Mourinho actually can't really be arsed, which is a bad mix. Somebody in awe of somebody, the person they're in awe of really doesn't really care about it anymore. And, obviously I'm probably miles and miles and miles and miles off, but something needs to happen this summer, and I just don't think it can be solved with a checkbook. It can't be solved with a checkbook. The coaching, the reality is that when you look at Manchester United, the signings we've made have been redundant apart from Matic and Lukaku to a certain extent, and that's across the 2 years. We've got a disengaged manager, and the style of football is embarrassing. It is embarrassing. How many people went to work today and got absolutely mullered by rival fans? It's embarrassing. You can't defend it. You really can't defend it. That needs to be resolved on the coaching staff. Jose needs to step away from what he's done before. But board is responsible, says Philippe. I think Mourinho does not know what to do with Sanchez, says Leela. And what do you think? What do you think is needed to be done? Says Wakas Akrim. Well, I think I've covered all that there. I think Jose Mourinho needs to have a little bit of a kick up the backside himself. Some of the stuff he comes out with in the press conferences is not acceptable for Chelsea, so it's certainly not acceptable for Manchester United. The stuff he regurgitates over the last few weeks is very much Mourinho FC and Manchester United second, and he needs to stop that. He also needs to fall in love with football again. I've watched Mourinho for over a decade, as many of you have, and he is not happy at the moment. He's not happy at all. And that needs to be addressed, because if he's not happy, he may as well go. I want Mourinho to stay. A lot of people do. But I don't want this Mourinho to stay. It's not the real Jose Mourinho. And I think I was asked that a few weeks ago, what's your issue with Mourinho? If you're Mourinho in, but you're always moaning. That's because it's not Jose Mourinho. This is not the Jose Mourinho we all thought we were getting. And I think the biggest thing is he's unhappy. He's very, very unhappy. And I don't think it's to do with United. I just don't think he's in love with football anymore. Justice O says Mourinho is used to strong-minded warriors like he's always had, but players now are softer-minded. It's up to Jose to adapt or leave. It's an interesting point. I laughed when Lingard came off. Just show there is no love in the club, says Mr. Exclusive. Jose's lost the plot. Only plays his favourites, says Wallata 1-1. And he is becoming Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, says Navita. I'll tell you what, if you've seen The Last Jedi, you're proper right there. He has become like that. Mourinho's lost faith, hasn't he? And my biggest fear about this summer is, and if you've been watching the United stand for any length of time, you'll know I do transfer daily. I love the summer transfer window. I absolutely love it. But I am enjoying it, but I've got this massive cloud of apprehension about it. I've got this massive cloud that we are going to sell Martial, that we are going to sell Luke Shaw, that we might sell Paul Pogba. And we will make good signings. We will make good signings, and some fans will be sucked in by that. They'll be like, oh, yeah. Sod Martial, too inconsistent. Get rid of Luke Shaw, he's fat. Get rid of Pogba and his dabs. None of those things I agree, by the way. I'm taking the mickey out of the fans who say that nonsense. They'll usher him out the door at the promise of another piece of gold, which will be Savic or someone like that. But why will Milinkovic-Savic shine in this team if Pogba can't? Why will Sandro shine if Luke Shaw can't? Why will Willian shine if Martial can't? What the saddest thing will be is, if they do shine, it will be because we change the tactics. And if we're going to change the tactics, why are we getting rid of those players? Because they'll perform better as well. That's what's bothering me the most. Cobros Aiken says, take a like for that comment if you were the board. Thanks, Cobb. Yeah, please do drop a like on the video. I haven't asked for that tonight. I know it's been a little bit forthright, but we're not going to spend this summer just exclusively talking about transfers. The most important thing is Manchester United, and as fans, we must talk about that. And yeah, there'll be things that you don't really like to hear, but if it opens up the debate in the comments and on the Skype shows, great. This summer's going to be different to the last two. The last two, we've gone into those summers with enthusiasm, whether it was a new manager or winning a Europa League and getting back in the Champions League. And the signings, it was always an exciting time. I said this a few weeks ago, this summer's not going to be like that. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be excitement about signings, but we've not had a great season. There's going to be the pits, the despair of losing players that we don't want to go. So it's going to be a very strange summer this summer. So expect it to be a bumpy ride, but a very interesting one. A very interesting one indeed. Anyway, please do drop a like on the video. But I've got something fantastic for you now to let you all know about. Live stream watch along tonight. No Skype show tonight. We're going to do it tomorrow. Manchester United versus Chelsea 2008. It's 10 years today. 10 years today that Manchester United played Chelsea. 10 years tonight. And we're doing a live stream watch along tonight in about 10 minutes. In 5 minutes it starts. I can give you though. Team news is in. Team news is in. So on the bench, we've got, team news, Van der Sar, Wes Brown, Vidic, Ferdinand, Evra, Scholes, Carrick, Hargreaves, Ronaldo, Tevez and Rooney. And on the bench, Kuszak, Thomas Kuszak, O'Shea, Mikel Sylvester, Anderson, Ryan Giggs, and Nani and Darren Fletcher. So, link in the video description for that. I'm going to be live on there literally in a couple of minutes time because it starts at 7:30. We'll give you all the details how you can watch that game back with us. It's going to be, I tell you what, the saddest thing is it's going to be the best 90 minutes watching Manchester United of the season, and it's not even going to be a proper game. I'll see you on there. Link in the video description. I'm going to be there in about 2 minutes' time. Get over onto that stream and enjoy it. You know, we'll deliver some happiness to this season for you. I'll see you on there in a minute.